Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Hope you guys are doing well. Thanks for joining today. We are on the Coxton sub in Trainz 2019, and we are mostly today going to just work on some of the elevation in the areas just to the south of the town of Billard. This is about the 22nd through 25th mile of the railroad, so not too bad. But I had some people asking about, just kind of how do you get some better looking elevation, and so this I figured was actually a really nice area to talk about the topic, mostly because this section of farmland here actually had quite a few elevation problems in the sense that the elevation was way too steep. Like, it's the kind of land that you wouldn't actually plant crops on, just because the elevation and the gradients on the hills were just really steep and really high, which makes sense. That would be better territory for ranching and pasture land for animals. So in this video we're going to cut down on some of those elevation changes a bit. We're going to smooth out a lot of different things, and that'll give me a good kind of sample space really to kind of talk about some of the features I use to get better looking elevation. I'm definitely not the greatest at any of this stuff. I'm sure if you look hard enough on YouTube and other places you can find plenty of extremely talented route builders. But I do know that I at least make stuff look reasonable. I'm just kidding. I'm not like lacking confidence. I'm just not pretending to be the greatest either, because I'm not that either. Not the worst, not the greatest, somewhere in the middle, and that's fine by me. But yeah, there's a lot of this old farmland that we're just going to cut out. This is what I called in one of my older videos, actually my most popular video ever. This is what I call cookie cutter farmlands. It was really 3 fields and a homestead that I put together, and then I just copied and pasted it over the entire route just to get some filler space. And honestly, if you look back at a lot of the old operation videos I've made, you probably didn't even notice. Most times you probably didn't even notice, because of course you're probably focused on the operation that was going on. But that's exactly the reason why I had these cookie cutters, was because it would just fill space. So here we are. If you look at the right side of the screen up at the top, I've got what's called the plateau tool selected. And the thing about the plateau tool is wherever the center of that circle is, and you click, that becomes the height that it will try to smooth everything either up or down to. And this tool is the key in everything before Surveyor 2.0. This is the key to getting elevation and gradients that look more fluid, more smooth, and just better all around, not so clunky or boxy. Now, of course, if you try to fit too much in a tight space, you are still going to get some boxy looking stuff, since Surveyor 1.0 doesn't let you go less than 5 meters. But I'm looking forward to being able to get around that with some HD terrain features in Surveyor 2.0, but save that for a later date. But essentially, I'm leveling out some steeper hills and then kind of taking a look at things to see if I like them, and then just continue to bring them back down. I did some research here on the Arkansas River, and most of the Arkansas River is lined by very dense forests, so that's why I kind of was adding in some more trees there, and I'll change a few more tree things here and there. But this pasture, though, I'm going to keep with the animals. That was something I built previously, so we're not going to focus on that. We're going to focus on redoing all of this over here. And researching the area that I am not prototypically modeling, but more or less using as like a geographical reference. It's just a bunch of big fields, and they're typically pretty square, except when it gets close to the river. Then sometimes you get some more different shapes like what you're seeing here. But essentially the fields are pretty reasonably large, and it's just one crop per field kind of thing. There's not a lot of variance. So we're going to simulate that and make these fields much larger, which obviously makes a lot of sense because modern agriculture benefits from the efficiencies of the tractors and the things that they can use to harvest and sow and plow and till and everything else. They can cover so much land in a day. It forces you to have bigger fields, because otherwise you're wasting time transiting between fields when you can just be planting more. So I am not a farmer, so I couldn't tell you what the threshold is. At what point do you start transitioning to a different field or different crop? But there are people who are experts in that stuff, and I'm not one of them. But that's the biggest change right now, is just getting rid of a lot of the smaller scale stuff. That's was stuff I put in there back in the Tane day. I'm also getting rid of all these non-PBR textures. When it comes to stuff near the track, I've moved to exclusively PBR textures, and I don't regret it at all. Definitely the right move. These, along with Turfex, is the way to go for sure. And even when I get in the server at 2.0, definitely looking forward to really unlocking the potential for PBR with all the HD terrain and stuff. So one of the things too is big fields are usually always lined by grass or dirt before you get to another field. That's because that's where people are turning their tractors around, or they have a fence there, or there's bushes, things that help separate the fields a bit. So we're not going to plant soybean right up next to a wheat crop. There's going to be some separation. And so I'm representing that in different spots here as well. But right now it's just painting. Very important part. And now we're going to add some Turfex get rid of some, and then we're going to add some in later. I do usually line my fields with at least short grass within, reasonable distance of the track. Just kind of depends. I don't usually worry about going too far away from the track with Turfex. Up close, though, we definitely enjoy the view from having the Turfex added. It looks a lot better. All right, now we're going to start getting into throwing some bushes in along the track after we get the Turfex done. So this is me making a run real quick with this short grass. So this grass is just tall enough to stick up above the ground and be seen, but not tall enough to stick up above the ties or the rails. And I did that on purpose so that I could do exactly what you just witnessed me do. And that is lay the short grass next to the track so that it covers the ground. And then we come lay the long grass. Now the long grass would certainly go well over the ties and the rails. So we're going to try really hard to not have any of the long grass inside the track space. And there's a really easy way to make sure that's done. I can't remember if I actually threw that in here or not, but essentially after you lay all the long grass, you just go back over the track with the lower elevation tool, which is how you eliminate Turfex, and that eliminates it right off the track for you. So that way it leaves just the short grass. I did learn that multiple layers of Turfex do not overwrite each other. So if you want to have long grass and short grass in the same spot, you can. Now, obviously, long grass makes it where you can't see the short grass, but it makes it where to accomplish exactly what I'm discussing, you can just eliminate the long grass and the short grass stays, which is really nice. So I'm working simultaneously on the main line that comes into Billary, and also this part right here is the med branch, which I am going to redo a bit more of that branch as well, not in a deep manner, but just to get some of the textures and scenery assets and things updated. I did broaden out the curve there at the top of the hill a little bit, so that was nice. Made it where it's not so ridiculously sharp. It was technically prototypically possible to have a curve as sharp as I had it. I just didn't like it. All right, but you can see this Turfex, time it takes to add Turfex, it definitely adds up, but man, the effect is certainly worth it. So far we've used the plateau tool mostly to kind of balance out our elevations. Now we're adding in Turfex of different densities in order to get some grass cover, especially over the pasture land where we're going to throw some animals. And then now, actually sidetrack. Look at this. That's a creek there. See that? How cool is that? It's got water in it, but when you're down at the water level, you can't really tell. Love it. Good stuff. Anyways, a little preview of the route there in 400% speed. Going to build a small farmstead here, just one. That's another thing that I eliminated was, I had one farmstead for every 3 fields because it was just cookie cutter, kind of pasted in there. And that's another thing I very quickly worked to get rid of was the extreme overabundance of unnecessary farmhouses. So looking at Google images of the area that we're modeling, they are nowhere near as frequent as I had them. And that's completely acceptable because it was all just a space filler in the first place. For right now, though, I don't really go into too much crazy detail on the farmstead. I'm just kind of getting things roughed in. For the most part, in the rural areas, this is how I like to operate. I just like to kind of rough things in. When it's close to the track, I get to a bit of detail, but for anything that's not like literally right next to the track, I'm just not going to spend hours super detailing one scene or one plot of land. I'm not trying to finish this a decade from now. I'm trying to finish it this year. So that is really the hope. But there you can see me lining the field with some of the dirt, like I mentioned before. Pretty much most of the fields that I've ever been around in the Texas, Arkansas area that were exclusively for planting crops every year, they always had, this little section of dirt at the end. They just didn't plant the crop right up to the fence. But, any fence line that's been there for any amount of time is going to have birds sit on it. And when the birds sit on it, they're going to drop seeds. And those seeds that they've eaten are going to grow into bushes and trees over time. So any well-established fence line is going to have bushes. Most farmers and ranchers don't go out there and de-weed all of their fences because what's the point? I mean, obviously, like if you have to replace the fence, well, then sure, you cut all the little bushes down or trees or whatever, But, farmers and ranchers, they aren't usually redoing their fences every few months. I think the last time I laid a barbed wire fence, I was probably in middle school. I remember it definitely being a lot of work. But it was all right. Good work as a kid. Teach you how to work hard. Get out there and sweat. Do some stuff. But whenever I line tracks, I do it in a series. I grab an asset and I just spam that asset till I feel satisfied. I try not to make it too repetitive. So I change up my mouse clicking patterns and my speed of placement and all that stuff. Some are close, some are far away. I don't worry about, the beauty of placement because in nature, its beauty is that it's not super repetitive. There's a lot of variance. And then I go in and now add a second asset and do the same thing. I kind of have a series of, 3 to 5 assets that I run with for fence lines like this. And I just kind of create nice little low-lying hedgerows. Crucial detail in my opinion. Absolutely necessary for any fence line. But having knocked some of that elevation down, though, makes this all look a lot better. It was really looking very, very gamey before. It's going to look a lot better when it's done here. So there we are again, still lining those fields with dirt. Once again, not too worried about the perfection or the how well it looks necessarily, but just worried about getting it in there. Because at the end of the day, you're not going to be standing in the corner here staring at the dirt on the end of this field going, man, that's really well done. No, you're going to spend your time in the areas where you're switching cars or, where there's things to look at like towns and cities, and you're going to spend your time looking at those kind of details. Really have enjoyed this route, though. I'm definitely glad that the major rework is almost finished. This is all the part that I had finished actually in Trainz a New Era like 3.5 years ago before I ever got 2019. Actually, 4.5 years ago at this point. And so, yeah, it just all needed to be redone because it was very, very low quality compared to what I'm able to do now. Just reflecting on myself, not saying anything about anybody else's creations. But do have to add in some trees and things here to get all this part fixed up, and we are going to add a lot of trees, actually. I'd definitely like to add a few more trees where fences have corners just because, that ground's not usually plowed or tilled because the tractors don't always reach back in there, and so stuff grows up. And so I usually add a lot more tree cover in those areas. I've just, from observing nature, all my years of hunting and being outside, I've noticed that that's very consistent in how nature plays out around fields. So it's one of those good little looks that you can add in, creates more variance, takes away some of the repetition, but also helps you not have everything corner off all the time. You don't want stuff just being a flat corner all the time either. But there are still a lot of other little things I could add. I could add junk along the side of the right-of-way, for example. I could add in some other smaller bushes, some wildflowers on the track. There's all kinds of other stuff still, and we'll get to that at some point. But I'm definitely pushing for a fully scenic release where I can maybe do an update or two with some more fine-tuned things getting done. Some of the finer points and finer moments, some areas of focus, you could say. But we're going to wrap it up here in about 30 minutes, but I will tell you the best advice for getting better looking elevation is use the plateau tool. Set the sensitivity up to about the middle and just go for it. But I just want to thank you guys for joining in today. We've got a couple more railroader videos coming up, but always love my Trainz 2019 and the route building on there. So stay tuned for the next one. Appreciate it. And we'll see you guys next time.